Okay, everyone, welcome to the MBA Leaders Panel. I'm just the sub-host here. My name is Givi Kanagaratnam. Just a couple of housekeeping. We advise you to post your questions in the Q&A button you see. And during the Q&A period, we will disable the chat, and then that will get enabled again at the end. Today's MBA Leaders Panel is moderated by our Dean Zwick. So over to you, Dean Zwick.
Thank you, Giri, and good morning once again, everyone. I'm now pleased to serve as the moderator of our Launch Week Leaders Panel. Please join me in welcoming a terrific group of individuals on this year's panel. You've seen perhaps the longer bios of all the panelists. I'm just going to provide short intros, but I really encourage you to read the whole bio for each panelist. They're absolutely impressive individuals, and I'm so glad you guys can join. So we have here Kunata Lake, a Schulich BBA graduate from the class of '03, and an MBA JD graduate from the class of '08. Kunata is now partner with Torys LLP. And we also have here today Anya O'Flynn, an IMBA graduate from the class of '96 and managing director, global head equity, products and research at BMO. And we have here Stephen Shea, an MBA graduate from the class of '84, who is the Canada managing partner for talent at Ernst & Young. Stephen generously agreed to host an EY Schulich alumni reception at the head office several years ago, which included a fascinating discussion on the future of work. And I have a feeling that we might return to maybe some of those topics today, given the pandemic and I think a whole host of changes we might see in our world of work. So I'm looking forward to that. And I really like to extend a warm welcome and thank you to all the panelists today. Thanks for joining. So I'll begin today's discussion by asking our panelists some questions that I believe will be of real interest to our students. So to kick things off, I'd like to ask the question about sort of leadership. Each of you hold leadership roles at some of the top companies in your various industry sectors. Tell us a bit more about your approach to leadership, please, and what guides you as a leader. And what do you find most challenging and most exciting about being a leader? And maybe we'll start with Kunata.
Right, great. Thank you, Dean, and thank you for having me. It's always great to be back at Schulich, even if it's virtually. So maybe I'll start by speaking a bit about my leadership roles at Torys, and then as you'll see my bio and as Dean mentioned, I'm a partner at Torys LLP, which is a corporate law firm based in Toronto, New York, Calgary, Montreal, and Halifax. So within my role as a partner, the different places where I act in a leadership role, primarily on files and managing files. So that's I do primarily mergers and acquisition work, so working with clients to help execute deals. And on those deals, as the partner, I'm oftentimes the kind of most senior person from the firm on the file, and that then requires that I'm the person that puts the team together for a file and the person that then leads the execution of that file. I'm also on the finance committee of her firm, and so with that, in that role, work in a leadership capacity with the finance team. And I serve on boards, including the board of York University, and in those capacities lead at a different level. So you know, in throughout all of those, for me, you know, leadership really, at the core is people and engaging with people, understanding people, and then helping them to kind of get to where we're trying to go. On deals, that means understanding clients and what they actually need from a file, and then understanding what my team needs are and availability is. In the law firm context, people will work on multiple files. And so understanding kind of people's demands at that time is critical, and ensuring that, you know, their availability, their skill sets match what the particular client needs for that particular file. So core to, for me, for leadership is working with people, solving people dynamic and people issues. And when I say issues, not necessarily that someone has something that's wrong, but just understanding what is happening in their life, both at work, not at work. Understand the same for my client, and putting that together and figuring out, making sure that it's complementary, and then where there are gaps, either stepping in to fill that gap or finding someone else to fill that gap. And so I think core is kind of understanding, managing, leading people. And so my style is really to focus on it's a bit almost like like not quite a counselor, but you're constantly kind of being there, talking with people, understanding people, and kind of guiding them to where they need to be. And that's, I enjoy that, because I enjoy kind of engaging with people. And so my leadership style really focused around communication and engaging with both my clients and my team members, and then similar philosophy at the board level and on the finance committee where I sit, is really focusing on kind of people, what they need, and then filling in the gaps where I can based on those communications.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kanata. Anya, what are your thoughts on the question of leadership?
Oh, sorry. So thank you, Dean. Is that all right? Can you see me?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. And hear me. Okay. So I am thrilled to be here, and thank you for including me. And I do also have very fond memories of my time at Schulich. So, I mean, my approach to leadership, it really is one of inclusiveness. And inclusiveness may seem like a buzzword, and it may seem very vague, but really this encompasses many attributes and characteristics like passion, empathy, inclusion, listening. But you also have to have a backbone and the ability to make a stand once your team has had their moment to speak. You take everything in and then move forward. And so if I think about the qualities of a leader, I think first of all, you do have to love what you do. That makes you more believable as a leader. And one of the things that I think is highly underrated in terms of the quality of a leader is that ability to listen. It may seem simple, intuitive, and obvious, but it's a skill that really does require work. I have a running joke with the director of research who took my role when I got this role. And when he first got the job, I put this big sign up that said, listen, because as an analyst, you're just always waiting to speak. And so you don't actually take in what people are saying. So he jokes that he has like permanent bruises on his shins. They've recovered now because of COVID, because we're virtual, but because I would always constantly kind of kick him under the table to say, listen, like stop interrupting. So he's now gone from interrupting to waiting to talk, which is not really listening, and now he's starting to listen. So it is something, it does take time. And then in terms of leaders, though, there are many types of leaders, and not every type works for everyone. Like, I'm not a dictator, I'm a more inclusive one, but sometimes it works for some people. But one of the things that I think you need as a leader is you need the support of your team to make your vision and your strategy a success. They have to buy in. One of the lines that I love is your team need to follow, or do they want to follow? You want people to follow you. You don't want them to be following you because they feel they have to in order to get paid. They need to believe. So that's something that I always kind of have in mind. Am I believable? Am I really making all I have to do for them to believe the vision that I've set forth? I would say the most challenging part of being a leader is when you face adversity. How do you keep the faith yet steer through the challenging times, through the adversity? If there's going to be a bad in the banking industry, everyone focuses on the bonus. What do you do about a bad bonus year? How do you message that realistically? And how do you manage through that to say, let's look for the long term, let's kind of look over to the horizon. You know, we have good years and bad years and all that kind of thing. So it is easy to lead when times are good, but when times are bad, that's when you really earn your pay. And then the most exciting part for me really is developing talent and seeing them shine. And I'll leave you with this, that one person said to me when I first started managing people, said, you really have to realize that this job's not about you. It's about the 100 or 200 people that work for you. If they shine, you shine. So I always remind young leaders these days, it's not about you. Just drop the ego. It's if you can make your team a success, that means you're a success. So I'll leave it at that, Dean.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much, Anya, for that. And I'll pass it on to Stephen. You've enjoyed a long and successful career. So how about you? How would you characterize your leadership philosophy?
Well, thanks again for having me, and welcome everybody. And I too have very fond memories of my time. As you can tell by my graduation date, it was a bit of a wasteland up at Jane and Finch in the Kiel area back in the early 80s. And there wasn't a new building, and there was a whole bunch of things going on. So when I go back, it's great to see the evolution of the organization. I think I always look at leadership. Leadership is an attribute, not a position. You know, it's not a title. We tend to always say, okay, a leadership position, but in my mind, you can demonstrate leadership at no matter where you are and what you're doing. And for me, when I look at my roles that I've taken over evolution of my career, sometimes unknowingly and sometimes unwittingly, but sometimes, and as I got more mature and more accomplished, I began to really understand and embrace that. And I think I would key on the themes that my other two panelists have talked about. At the end of the day, when I look at leadership, it's about making the people around you better. Particularly as it relates to a teamed environment, which we almost all will have to operate in, even in a remote environment, and sometimes it's even more important in a remote environment. But you know, it's to Anya's point, it's like if it's about you, if it's about me, then you can only in that case lead by dictum, by having the authority and the mandate. Think of the military, where you must follow a rule and you don't have a choice, and insubordination has its costs. That's not how 95% of society works. You need to have people that feel like you are going to go to battle with them, and that collectively you'll come to a better answer. So listening is obviously important, having the courage to make decisions. And I think the most challenging thing as I went through my career is understanding when you're wrong, and being smart enough to admit it, and credit the people who are right. At the end of the day, I tell all of our young partners and our staff, we're trying to be partner. In the culture of our firm, you don't need to brag about yourself. If you make other people better, they'll brag for you. And that's the most incredible way to get it. And my last thought I would leave you is you can lead in your first year, your second year, your third year. Well, hope there isn't a third year of your MBA, maybe if you're part-time. Me, I kind of had an extended one, but that's for another story. You can lead in everything you do, and you can build and develop those skills as you go, and you should, and they become innate. You can't decide to turn on leadership 10 years into your career. It's much more difficult.
Fantastic. I mean, that's such an important point. I think as our students start their journey at Schulich to think of themselves as perhaps sort of leaders in training, and to start develop these mindsets and focus on, I think on those aspects of their programs, as well as all the other things they need to learn. So I think that's really valuable. Thank you very much. My next question is a two-part question. So first of all, please tell us about what you think are the qualities and skills that you look for in a team member. You already talked a little bit about teams from a leadership perspective. What are some of the qualities you look for, and why those particular qualities? And secondly, is there one specific skill or talent that you believe will take on increased value in the post-pandemic world? And if so, what is it? So I'll start with Anya, if that's okay.
Great. So, I mean, there are many skills that you look for. Like there's the tactical skills that various jobs require. And so those are almost a given, right? If you're going to be in programming, if you're going to, you know, spreadsheet analysis, the basic intellectual capacity, I almost take as a given. So what you need then from there is, I mean, and again, these might seem a little bit nebulous, I guess, but you look for drive, you look for commitment, You look for enthusiasm, ability to communicate, and this is critical because I think in this world we live in of you know, electronics and Snapchat and whatever you might want to call it. I don't Snapchat, but all the short form communication. Really important is the ability to write. I mean, you do write a lot of things still in any kind of business. I think all three, Stephen and Kanata, we all in our different businesses, the requirement to write is very important, so that can't be lost. But then there's empathy, creativity, optimism, and all of those come out in an interview, in a discussion, in perhaps your cover letter. But I would say it's the connection that you're making with people that really sometimes wins the day. And even never underestimate the simple things like eye contact. I think about this, and in a Zoom world, it's quite complicated because I have to keep, you want to look at yourself on the screen, but you got to look at the camera. So, but, you know, knowing something about the company you're interviewing with, you know, all those kind of small skills and small little details, they matter. And one interesting thing that I always just keep in the back of your mind, that I learned this probably 22 years ago when I was first interviewing: never ever say anything badly about the places you've been prior, because that is definitely a signal. Because sometimes you think it's good to say, oh yeah, I don't like RBC, they're not very good, they don't do this well, they don't do that well. That is, I think, not something you want to do, because then everyone wonders when you want your next job, what are you going to say about the place you work? But so the bottom line, I would say, in terms of the qualities, you want to be yourself. You want yourself to shine, because it's far too much work to bring somebody else to work, have someone else at home, have someone else with your friends. If you bring your whole self to work, it's something that we focus on a lot here at BMO, people being comfortable bringing who they are to work. I think that will, you know, make the connection work or not, because after everything, you have to want to be with and get along more or less, or respect the people that you're working with. I'll leave it at that. And the post-COVID, there's a few that I kind of thought about when we were talking about these questions: self-starter and perseverance. Because in this isolated world, it is difficult sometimes. You're sitting in front of your computer for 12 hours and you have to motivate yourself. So I think that is one of the skills that is going to probably rise to the top. And again, it's not that easy to articulate, but as people see you work, that's something I think is going to be very important.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Anya. Stephen, how about you?
Thank you. I think at the end of the day, it sounds kind of trite, but it's rooted in integrity. And what, at the end of the day, what, if you have an alignment with an organization's purpose, your purpose, you get the passion, you get everything. But are you gonna, it's the sort of say-do matrix. Do you do what you say, and do you say what you're gonna do? That's, to me, the most important thing in a team environment, is that people can count on you to be there and do what you need to do. And if you extend it one level, is, do you, when people ask for help, are you there to give them that help, guidance, whether it's guidance, whether it's they're under pressure and they can't get something done, or are you protective of your own turf? And so when I look at the people who are going to be leaders at the end of the day in a firm, and a lot of what I do is in the succession planning area, it really does come down to their core values. And are they aligned with the values of the organization? Are they going to treat people with integrity, respect? Are they going to make the difficult decisions, but have those decisions anchored in a place of the tied with the core values that are integrity? Because you're always going to face some very difficult decisions in your career. And what makes them easier as you get more scar tissue is the knowledge that at the end of the day, you're trying to do the right thing, all things being equal. So anybody who can stay anchored with that integrity will ultimately have, I believe, a core attribute of leadership. And as you go, as it relates to the COVID world, I think in the post-COVID world, it's that commitment to each other, and it's that ability to adapt and have integrity and be a team player irrespective of what the environment might throw at you. So it's an agility, I guess, a mental agility to adapt as we go, because this isn't over and who knows what it'll bring in the future, but the future will settle down at some point.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. Konata, what would be your thoughts on team members and characteristics you're looking for, and perhaps how this pandemic, this virtual world we're looking at is changing or adding to what you're looking for?
Certainly. And I think about this often. I'm involved in our firm's recruitment process, and so go through these kind of thought processes often. And you know, the kind of four key things that jump out to me, and have been mentioned by my other panelists. But the first is kind of a genuine curiosity about what it is that our firm does, or if it's in a smaller team within a company, a genuine curiosity about what that team does, what the department does. That is, to me, the most important thing. You can, and again, I agree with Anya in terms of we assume intellect, we assume kind of all the basic skills, and so genuine curiosity becomes the first thing I think about. You know, second item is there's a difference between genuine kind of interest and intellectual curiosity. And the second point for me, I think, is intellectual curiosity. And that doesn't mean you're the smartest person in the room. What it means is, above simply being interested in the area, you're actually willing to dive in and kind of think through different things that come up, whether it's not just a task that's assigned to you, but think beyond. We all encourage people to do that. So I think intellectual curiosity is second for me, and the third is work ethic. And I'm a big sports fan. I like sports analogies, and I'm mindful that if you think of the great athletes we think of, almost all of them encountered people that were way more talented than them. And the reason why the Wayne Gretzky's of the world stick out to is, I would guess, it's largely because of the work ethic above innate skill set. And so I'd say to people, do not think too much about, are you the smartest person in the room? That likely will not dictate how successful you are. It's going to be, your level of commitment, the level of work that you're willing to put in. And the fourth and final thing is the, I think Stephen touched on it, it's the genuineness, the likability. And that doesn't mean you have to be the friendliest person, the person that laughs all the time, the most gregarious, kind of outgoing person. What it really means is be yourself. And that, the more genuine you are, the more bring yourself to work, your honest self, not the self you think someone else would like you to be. If you do that, I think people will gravitate towards that and will feel comfortable around that, because then they can be themselves. And the more of an environment you have where everyone is comfortable kind of being who they are, I think that just creates a better team dynamic. In terms of the post-pandemic world, I think Stephen touched on it. I think it's adaptability. We're going through this pandemic now. What's the next pandemic that will come, or what is the kind of fundamental change that will come out from this? I think that a lot of it's just unknown. In fact, many things about how this pandemic will play out, remains unknown. And so it's that ability to transition to the reality you're facing will be critical. So if that's someone at home and they've got a 3-year-old running around, they've got a conference call, it's trying to figure out how to cope in that environment and learning to cope in that environment will be the most fundamental, because I'm not trying to predict what will the world look like, but just being comfortable and willing to work within whatever the world look like, because I think trying to predict what it will look like is probably quite challenging.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've been busy taking notes. I think it's absolutely incredible insights you guys are offering, and I hope the students are taking notes too. I mean, one of the things there will be a lot is a team member. Working in teams at Schulich is one of the key tasks they'll have to learn and to succeed in. And while this is recorded, this meeting, I hope the students will go back there. There's so many key elements already in your answers, the curiosity, the willingness to contribute, the willingness to learn together and to engage with each other. I mean, it's such a key point, I think, about making teams successful and being a productive, successful team member. I want to finish with a question about technology and the relationship of technology to the way we work and live today. Because I think what we're seeing, especially during the pandemic, of course, for a long time now, but I think in some ways exacerbated by the pandemic, is the increased influence of communication technologies on how we relate to each other. And you already alluded to this in your previous answer about how teams and team members now need to work together in this virtual environment, which comes with a whole host of new challenges and skill requirements. How do you see new technologies reshape your industry and the way you work, and how you connect with clients, customers, suppliers, team members, and what kind of opportunities do you think lay ahead for our graduates and our students as a result of technological innovation and change? And maybe Stephen this time to begin.
Okay. Well, I think at the end of the day, I look at technology as both an enabler and a product in our industry, right? Which is largely consulting, whether you call it audit, tax, transactions, or pure consulting. So to me, there's two components to it. There's the ability to embrace, develop, and learn new technologies to solve problems and to communicate. So our firm went on March 20th completely virtual. Out of the offices. I'm back in my office now, probably for the 10th day since March 20th, and we're slowly coming back. And so the ability to use the technology given to still operate your business, and it's been quite astounding, actually, if you look across society on how it has adapted that way. And if you were to go back 3 to 5 years ago, we're probably lucky the pandemic didn't hit them, because the technology platform, Zoom and others, were not nearly as robust and stable as they were this year. And then there's technology as a product or a service. In other words, as a problem solution for organizations, whether it's financial services, in any sector, technology is going to become a core enabler of their businesses. And, and obviously there's a technology sector where the business is technology. So there's a huge amount of opportunity, I think, for people who embrace technology. And that comes back to a lot of what Kanata said in terms of curiosity, agility, and all of those other things. I think one thing I would say as we go into this sort of next phase of COVID and all of that is that there's a lot of information and opinions out there about how technology is going to change it. No one's going to ever go back to an office. Well, that doesn't really work very well for organizations that need mentoring, where they have, sort of quick decision making, and you've got the tutelage that goes. Secondly, it doesn't necessarily work really well, we'll see, on mental health and stability and the separation of home and work and all of that. And not everybody's the same. So I think we're going to migrate to something else. Clearly, people will not be chained to their office the way they were in the past, where there is a culture that said that they must do X, Y, or Z. So the future of work, I wouldn't even be able to really predict it 12 to 24 months down the road. People are saying, well, there'll be no corporate offices. I don't think it'll be that. And then, but at the same time, I don't think everyone will come back to the way it was. So it's quite an exciting time. But technology is a linchpin, embracing it and being open-minded. And fortunately, the students now are the generation that have grown up with technology from day one. Pretty much they started on, I don't know, all of the electronic devices and that. Whereas in my age, we started with pencils, and we had to embrace technology through the course of our career. And it was a much bigger learning curve. I think you have more agility built into, even though the parents hate the idea of all these video games and all that other stuff that people have used. It's certainly got a comfort level with technology.
Interesting. Thanks so much, Stephen. Kanata, what are your thoughts on this technology question?
And so, technology in our sector, in the kind of professional services sector, agree with Stephen. It's a kind of a product as well as kind of something that's part of the process of delivering our service. But it is brought an incredible amount of kind of competition in our sector, as well as efficiency. And I'll take one example of work we do is, in any file, primarily on kind of an acquisition file, you'll have to do, the person that's buying the target will have to diligence the target and read and learn all they can about the target. 20, 25, 30 years ago, that meant, going physically to a location, unpacking boxes and reading through those boxes. By the time I started out of law school, that had all been moved to, you go to a data room, so log in, and all the documents are then uploaded there, and you then, download the documents and read those. Now you have software that allows you to take those documents from this virtual data room, put them in the software, and the software will find for you the respective provisions you're looking at. So you've gone from someone spending, I don't know how many hours, a couple hundred hours, first of all, flying to some location, presumably, sitting in a room, spending, a few hundred hours reading, to staying in your office, downloading, to now you're at home, presumably, but a software then kind of finds the things you need to see. So that's one example of how it just transforming the work that primarily junior entry level kind of lawyers would do, completely transforming, so that now our lawyers in Toronto, we actually have a center that's in Halifax that we do a lot of our diligence work from, and so it's really changing the work that our junior associates do. So on the one hand, that we saw, that created a potential threat in that, you have this technology that can kind of take away work that we do. We've embraced that, created this office that allows us to kind of produce some of these services at a more kind of cost-effective, in a more cost-effective manner. And then what that allows is our new associates are able to do kind of work that they do later on in their career. We kind of, get them to start doing that a bit earlier, because it makes more sense to have them do that out of a facility like Toronto versus what we can do out of our other offices. So that's an example of how, technology is affecting our industry and how we've adapted with it. And I think that will just continue in terms of what we will have to do as a service industry is move up the value chain, so to say. We will need to figure a way to deliver more high value services that clients are willing to pay for, because the kind of the more routine things that we did, someone will automate it. It's simply a matter of time, and they already have, and they will continue to do so. So I think that's a challenge for our industry. But it creates, I think if you are a new graduate, what that I think means is you're probably doing a lot less quote unquote grunt work than I did, than certainly that someone more senior to me did, because you just can't afford. Clients will not pay for that, and that stuff will be automated. So I think it actually creates tremendous opportunity to do really interesting work and kind of shed some of the stuff that you may not want to do. So I think it's actually a positive for new graduates. The one other point I'll make is another area where technology is really transforming our business is the engagement with clients. A big part of what we do, particularly as we become more senior, is engaging with clients, understanding clients' business, and then understanding how you can then offer a service that's useful to them. And that's challenging when you're limited in terms of face-to-face interaction. And so whether it's new technologies or whether it's just the fact that new grads are more comfortable with a virtual kind of interaction, I think that is just a new way of engaging with clients that will likely be certainly more virtual than it's been in the past. Is something that our industry is kind of learning to cope with. We now have kind of client development activities that are online. So instead of going to somewhere and having a wine museum or going to a winery, everyone kind of has their bottle of wine, and you get online and you chat about what people are drinking and what people are think about it. It's just a different way of interacting, and that's one example. But I think I think that's a benefit for new graduates because they will be they're certainly more comfortable with technology than people in the past, and that's kind of a new reality. Even if for something as quote unquote personal as having lunch with someone, that will now become, I think, more so virtual, and being comfortable in that environment will be critical for kind of future success.
Yeah, fascinating. Great. Thanks, Kanata. A quick follow-up then. I was really fascinated by your description of how what would be considered, really important in-person client events, such as a wine tasting event, for example, now moves virtually. Do you get a sense that people actually like this kind of different way of maybe they enjoy the fact that they don't have to drive to a winery. I don't know. Do you see actually that there's also a shift in mindset that maybe some of this is fun to be doing remotely?
No, I think it's like I think Stephen mentioned, our reality will be a bit of both, right? We'll not be all virtual, we'll not certainly be all face-to-face. I think people have gotten used to it. It was awkward at first, and now I think people kind of work through that awkwardness, and now they've gotten used to it, and in some sense prefer it, right? Like I think, there's some times when in the past you've had to have an event, and I've got a young 2-year-old at home, and so I juggle with leaving the office, trying to see him before he goes to bed, and then making back downtown for a dinner. Now, I'm home, I get to put him to bed, and then I jump online, and I'm not commuting. That kind of back and forth is out the picture, right? So it's actually a lot easier. And I think clients are in the same position. They've got young kids, young family, and so there is while this infringes on that time at home, it does create opportunities, and that the ease of being able to connect with people because you just sit in front of your computer and kind of pop up a Zoom account or whatever you're using. I think the benefits to that, I do think it will be augmented by face-to-face at appropriate times, but I do think there are benefits, and people have begun appreciating the ease and the flexibility that kind of the virtual connecting presents.
Mm-hmm. So interesting. Thanks for that, Kanata. And Anya, I would like to add one aspect to the question about technology and work for you because of your industry, the industry that you're on, and it has to do with fintech. A lot of talk about fintech, and perhaps you can maybe discuss a little bit how you see technology changes, not just related to maybe the way you connect with clients, work with teams, but also directly related to fintech.
For sure. So I agree with, maybe I'll kind of skip over some of the notes. Stephen and Kanata really, I think, hit the nail on the head. It's interesting. We've done a couple of wine tastings, and it's true at first they're a bit awkward, but you're sitting in your backyard and it's actually kind of nice. But again, I think there is going to be that half-half. Like I'm going out tomorrow night for my first client dinner that I haven't done a client dinner in 6 months. And so we're going to be out, so, fingers crossed here in Toronto. I don't know about the rain, probably outside somewhere. So it's a technology. I mean, what's very interesting, I work on a trading floor. Right now we're on an interim trading floor, but our trading floor, and we never would have had the courage to send everybody home. We would have said, it's not possible for our traders to work from home. Like, don't even talk about it. Well, guess what? In the span of a week, our entire, I have 500 people under me, and everybody went home. And let's be honest, there were issues, there were glitches, Fidessa wasn't working, Bloomberg wasn't working, whatever it is. But to be honest, in the last 6 months, I don't really think we've missed a ton, and everybody is working from home. I mean, the big question is, how are we going to get everyone back to work? And I've got 10 emails this morning already about the JP Morgan article that's circulating out there. And you just have to take all this with a grain of salt, because, I mean, I have a floor here right now, our interim floor, 175 people can sit on it. Socially distanced, there's 45 seats. And right now we have about 20 people on the floor. That's all that want to come back. So technology has enabled us to be able to comfortably work from home and service our clients appropriately. But I think it's that human interaction and the accidental water cooler, coffee room discussions that really produce ideas that is really missing. So I think we're going to get back to a hybrid. Like, all of this technology has really talked about given rise to what will the future be in terms of real estate, in terms of flexibility. And I mean, for us, from our perspective, there are regulatory issues. Right now, we are operating under an exemption, so we're allowed to trade from home. If that gets lifted or rescinded, everyone might have to be back in the office. So we'll see how that goes. But one of the things I think that's very interesting is the technology is going to enable you, all of the students, you can work anywhere. Like, we are already thinking about it to say, why does somebody have to be in New York? Why can't they be in, they can be in Toronto. They can call their clients, they can travel if they need to, whenever we're going to be able to travel again. I think it opens up a world of opportunity for all of you, because you could be in England, you could be in Toronto, you could be anywhere servicing clients globally. So I think that's something to think about when you're looking at jobs, looking for what you want to do. I don't necessarily think that geography is as much of an impediment as it used to be. With respect to fintech, quite timely, we bought a fintech company in April. In the middle of the pandemic, we closed this thing. It was crazy. It's an electronic trading platform called Clearpool. And so I think what we're going to see more and more of is big institutions like ours buying these fintechs, investing in them, because they can help you at the edge. Like this is an electronic trading system. And so now all of our trading goes through them on an electronic basis. We're selling it to our clients. And so that for us was a game changer. We were going to build it, or we thought about buying it. And we thought, time to market, internal abilities, attracting the right talent. Let's just pay a bit of a premium, but we got it, and it's not quite plug and play, but it's there. There's a couple of other things we're looking at right now, is taking minority investments in fintech companies. And these are little products, some are bigger, some are smaller, but that can help us do our job better. And the true thing is, and I think Kanata said it and Stephen as well, we need to free up our talent, our intellectual talent, to do the more value-added stuff, and the routine tasks should be automated, should be done by any one of these kind of cool new products. So it's coming, and I again, there's lots of, we get pitched all the time, all these little companies doing this, doing that, and we're listening more than we used to. I think before, banks used to be like, no, we got this. Now I think we're opening our minds to say, you know what, why don't we take a small investment in this? We can use it, or maybe make a profit. And so it's kind of an exciting time, really. And so that's kind of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. The dreaded A word, automation, came up a couple of times now already. And I think it is an absolutely critical point you guys are making about this, and for our students at the beginning, especially at the beginning of their programs, to really get their heads around the fact that I think what's really going to be required by organizations looking for talent is that person that can sort of move away from these routine tasks and solving routine problems, and to really contribute at a level, at value level, as you pointed out, that really can add beyond just doing what increasingly technology can do, and to start to develop that mindset right away, that to aspire to solving difficult problems, and perhaps adopt a mindset of creativity and willingness to learn to get to that point, which I think is challenging for all of us, and certainly for our incoming students to confront that and aspire to that. So thanks for pointing that out as well. And thanks everyone for your answers. I think it's been fantastic and really insightful for me, and I'm sure for the students as well. I'd like to actually bring in some student questions now that have been fed here through the chat window. And of course, the first one, and I think it makes sense, is sort of the classic question we would get at a panel like this, an orientation event, is what would be your advice for a new MBA student? Big question, of course, but allows you to pick your answer. So what advice do you have for an incoming MBA, or let's say master student? We have a lot of master students as well listening in. So off you go. Maybe Kanata, do you want to kick us off?
I think my advice would be have fun, which probably is counterintuitive to starting school, but I enjoyed my time in school. I didn't appreciate how much I enjoyed it until I was out of school. Really, you're at a moment in your career, and studying is part of your career, where your job is to learn. It's to learn a subject matter, learn multiple subject matters, interact with people, without the pressure of someone saying, okay, well, did you meet your target? Did you close that deal? But, you get to kind of, in some sense, live the day-to-day life of a business person, probably freer way, without some of the expectations that come with it. And so I just encourage you to take subjects you're interested in, and more, as important as that is, some sense more important, is get to know your other classmates, and not there are professional benefits to that, in the sense that these will be the people that you'll be interacting with in your career down the line, and you won't know now. You won't know today exactly how those will play out, but you will be interacting with these individuals, so get to know them. But beyond just the professional, also on the personal level, you will likely enter jobs where you will not necessarily be home at 4 a.m. if you have kids to kind of pick your kids up from school or play with them right at 4 every day. You'll be taking calls at odd hours of the evening, and it's helpful to be around people and to have friends who are likely will be in a similar situation. And the fact that you've decided to do this kind of business program, master's program, or the MBA program, you share similar interests, career interests, and so having people like that within your circle, both professionally but also just personally, will be really critical to kind of having a kind of full, complete, functioning kind of life in what I'm sure will be a busy career. So I'd say, take courses you're interested in, and have fun. Get to meet as many people as you can within the program, and maintain those relationships, throughout the program and then beyond. I think that's the most important thing. But the job will be there, even though you don't know what it looks like today. Trust me, it will be there. And you're getting a degree that will help you kind of be nimble in terms of what job you go into. So that would be my advice.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Stephen, what are you?
Yeah, if this makes sense, learning is the end product, marks are the byproduct, not the other way around. You will never have a more intense available, nor more time. Apologies to part-time MBAs who kind of get a confluence of all sorts of demands, but for full-time students, you will never have more time nor exposure to the ability to learn new things than you will have in the next couple of years. Because when you get in the workforce, you just don't get trained at that level, at that time, and at that pace. And also life evolves, whether it may be children, and some will have that already. But no matter what it is, if you go in to learn and absorb as much as you possibly can with the curiosity that Anya referred to before, the marks will follow. If you go in just for marks, you might forget to learn. And so that would be my advice.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen. And Anya.
Yeah, I'll keep it short, but my word I was thinking about was curiosity. Be curious, be bold, take risk, because as Stephen just said, this is an environment that you're never going to get again. So enjoy it, and also make connections. I think sometimes we kind of stay within our friend group type of thing. I know it sounds very school-like, but be curious, and that means with people as well as subject matter.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. As a dean, I should probably also go back to something Konada said earlier, work ethic. I want to add it to it. I loved really your answers, of course. I think it is about fun. It's about making friends, become like learning together, working together, and learning how to work together, all that part, and working hard. Great. I have a couple of questions here, quite complex and they're interesting. I think they relate to the conversation we had at the very beginning about leadership. And I think the questions might be summarized best perhaps as how do you figure out yourself what kind of leader you might want to become, or you are becoming, maybe you're constantly still becoming today. You know, is this something you sort of, you read a book and then sort of you adopt some techniques, or is this something you just sort of grow into and you discover about yourself as you take on new positions? Can you unpack for us a little bit how you figured yourself out as a leader, perhaps? Anya, maybe?
I'd say be yourself. I go back to that. You have to be, excuse me, it's who you are. I kind of think about how I am even with my children, with my friends. I think when you're your true self at work and at home or with your friends, that's where your real personality kind of shines. And I think in terms of my leadership style, I want to make sure no one's left behind. That's just who I am. That's kind of my personality, and I like to kind of lead from behind. And I'm never. I mean, it's everyone has an ego. We all have egos. Let's be clear. But I want to make other people look good, and so I think that's how I am. I never really have loved the spotlight. I remember I was very brief, I'll tell this. I was on the trading floor and we did this monster trade. My client was one side, someone else was the other side. The other person is peacocking around the trading floor saying, woohoo, I did this trade. And I was just, I wasn't. That's just not who I am. And so that's, I think, it's who you are. I don't think you can make it. You can read lots of books. I've read tons of books and you pick up little tidbits, but it's you.
Okay. Great. Thanks so much, Stephen.
I would echo a lot of that. I think that you got to be true to yourself. And what I tell folks, so, you know, and not every leadership position is for everybody, right? So there's one that leadership as a position and leadership as an attribute. Everyone can have the attribute of leadership, and that is to, and they will need to in some aspects of their life. It may not be their work life. It might be their family life. It might be in some other things. But to me, it's always align what you're doing with the things that make you go home happiest. And so I tell them, take 2 pieces of paper, write down on the left side, everything. When you're having great days, what are you doing? Are you solving problems? Are you helping people out? Are you a really good intellectual champ? Making a lot of money? Different, everybody has, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They all have different things. I remember that from my OB course a long time ago. It's still relevant, apparently. And then the other side is, what are the things that you're doing that actually detract from that? And then you pick the roles and the things and the passions, and they may evolve, so you need to come back and choose them. You will naturally migrate into a leadership role within that context. But not everyone can be a leader. You don't have 27 CEO or 500 CEOs. I report directly to the CEO. I've been doing it. I would not want that job. That's because it doesn't align with all of my strengths and all of that. And the person who does it is amazing at what they do, but they're different. What I do and what he does is very different. And so it's coming. Some of that is time has to tell. I don't think you start your career out of the MBA and say, you might say, I would like to be a CEO, but you don't even really know what that means. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I want to be the best I can be and be available to take on the next role that makes the most sense to me within the context of what drives me happy, and it'll evolve.
Fantastic.
That would be my view.
Stephen, thank you very much. Only have a couple of minutes left, Kanata, being just informed here, so I'll pass it on to you, but I can't give you a lot of time, unfortunately. Any thoughts on that question from you?
Yeah, no problem. And I agree with everything Stephen and Anya said. It sounds a bit counterintuitive in the sense that leadership is about kind of working with others, leading others, directing, guiding. But really it starts with self and really exploring yourself, your interest, and then going, and then that will then allow you to figure out the style that works best for you.
And I mean, it's such it seems a little bit of a common sense message, know yourself or understand who you are, but it's actually hard work. And we should say that one of the things I think we especially try to do with MBA students, IMBA students at Schulich is to give them that opportunity in the classes, especially sort of second year, but also some of our first year classes to really do that work, I think, of understanding, you know, who is my authentic self, particularly in a leadership context, perhaps, but also in a general context of socializing, networking, and so on. So fantastic. Thank you all three so much for this panel. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm sure our students enjoyed it a lot. I'm very appreciative and very grateful for your time and for your fantastic insights. So again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming here today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Good luck to all of you.
Yes.
Thank you all. Just a quick housekeeping. The students, you're asked to go to your GBC session, which starts at 10:35. This is where you're going to meet your student leaders, and this is the first chance you're going to have to network with your fellow students. So please do join the GBC session at 10:35. Thank you all. Bye.